In today's video, we will be looking at what is the best boss fight in Cold War Zombies, according to me. You'll probably share a totally different opinion, and that's what I want to hear. So if you have a totally different opinion ranking all of these boss fights, be sure to comment them down below. I'd love to see it, and maybe other people would love to see them as well. But yeah, today I will be looking at all of the boss fights, excluding the Machine of Protection of Orlov. My boy, look at him. You know, Orlov, if this list had you, you'd probably take number one, but you're not a boss fight, you're a protecting round, whatever you want to call it. And also, I won't be including the Outbreak or the event. Now, I'm not excluding the Outbreak Easter egg part 2, just a thing that you find around Outbreak itself. Before we fully get into it though, gotta just quickly thank you all so much for 30,000 subscribers. It is absolutely mind-blowing. We hit a huge milestone before the release of Vanguard, so thank you so much for that. And we're not stopping here, so if you're new here, be sure to subscribe, and also be sure to drop a like on the video. Let's get into it. So, coming in at the last spot, which is number 5, I'm going to be putting Outbreak Easter egg part 2. I don't think there's much that I can say about this Easter egg, apart from it's just the Outbreak or the event, and yeah, that's about it. The only good thing that came from this Easter egg was the story developing further for Mauer Toten. But the boss fight itself is, as I said, it's just like a slightly painted white Orda boss fight, I guess, with some zombies and stuff. Cool. Anyway, moving on to number 4. People will probably disagree with me on this one, but number 4, second last, is the Valentina boss fight for me. Yes, something that I've seen a lot throughout the community, especially with a community post that I made. People love the Valentina boss fight. I don't. Personally, looking back on it, redoing it, and rewatching some old gameplay, I don't know. It's just the music. It was cool the first time I heard it, but man, it kind of just, it gives me the shivers. Like, I'm like, ooh, I don't like this boss fight. I just don't have very good memories with it for some odd reason, and I know that's a bit being biased, but I just don't enjoy it. The fact that she has this weird annoying shield, she doesn't shut up, there's a bunch of disciples and everything spawning, and on top of this, she goes from location to location, which is cool, but I'm more of a fan of a specific boss fight arena. Even if it's a location on the map that's already there, I prefer just sitting in one place, trying to train the zombies around, trying not to die, than having to worry about taking out her shield with her weird like insta down moves and stuff like that. But huge props to Treyarch for actually doing more boss fights that were different from what we've seen before, but I'm just not a fan of it, and it's going to be taking the number 4 spot. Coming in at number 3, probably something that a lot of people would argue to take the Valentina spot, and that is the Firebase Z boss fight. This one is once again just like Outbreak Easter egg part 2, just another Orda one, but it's a bit different. Orda isn't walking around, Orda isn't healing, Orda is kind of just cut in half and looks pretty badass with the fire around him. In spawn, which is such a small area on Firebase Z, you have to train zombies. It's a bit challenging if you don't use extremely overpowered weapons on Orda, and I really did enjoy it when I did it. I'll never forget the first time I beat it, because it was like one of the first boss fights that we've had on Cold War Zombies since D Machina didn't introduce one, and the satisfaction of completing it after doing the most annoying Easter egg step, which is the mimic one on Firebase Z, it was just such a satisfying experience that I remember fondly on like Valentina boss fight. But I think the location they chose for this boss fight is very challenging to train zombies in, and if you do it in a really high round, it can be actually very difficult, and I just enjoy the aesthetic of this actual boss fight, and that's why it's going to be taking the number 3 spot. Moving on to the number 2 spot, it is going to be Big Chat Forsaken. Don't get me wrong, this boss fight is definitely not the best, but I do enjoy it. The arena is huge. It's a location of the map once again that we haven't seen before, and you're fighting Forsaken, my boy Zykov, which is something that, you know, I was expecting us to do, but it just all happened so fast in Forsaken that it's like, whoa, we literally fought this bad guy from this game that we've heard so many stories about, and well, to be honest, you defeat him with absolute ease. You can probably defeat him in like less than 4 minutes, unlike, you know you can do that with Orda and other stuff like that, but it's, you know, this huge bad boss, and it's not even that difficult to defeat, which is very funny. But I do love the implementation of using the huge machine gun lasers, whatever you want to call them. It's just so cool. Samantha's involved in this Easter egg as well, which is pretty cool. The story just kind of concludes with this boss fight, which is such a cool thing in my opinion, and a lot of people really enjoy this boss fight. From when I ask people, or when I've heard people say, this is like their number 1 spot, and I think that is because it's a very easy one to complete, and honestly, you don't really need any incredibly overpowered weapon for this or anything like that. You can probably go in with, like, let's say a pistol, defeat the shoulders, and then just have something effective or good enough to power up Samantha for her to power up your guns. There's a lot of powering up in this, but then destroying all of his armor, chests, whatever you want to call those crystal things, ether crystal, ethereum crystals. Yeah, you get the point. It's not as annoying as the Valentina one, and definitely not as disappointing as the Outbreak Easter egg part 2, where you go into the boss fight and you're like, oh, it's just another order. Wow. But lastly, moving on to number 1 spot. I am very much not being biased in this opinion, and some of you might already know what the number 1 spot is. It is Legion. If you don't know, one of the big reasons why we are still here doing YouTube and we're at 30,000 subscribers is because of this boss fight. I decided to do some tests on the Easter egg boss fight Legion back in May, June, and a lot of people seem to love it and asked me to do different weapons. And honestly, I was really curious about those weapons to test out on Legion, but the main reason I kept on going back to this boss fight, and I still do, I still go back to this boss fight, is because it's so fun. It is perfect amount of challenge with the perfect amount of kind of chaos in it, where it's just, it feels like an actual boss fight where you need to know the strategies. You need to know what fuel upgrade to go in with. You need to know what weapons to use. You need to know what ammo mods, what different strategies there are. That's why it feels like an actual boss fight. There's a strategy to it. There's no, oh, go into this, use whatever weapon, destroy certain armor points, and then just, you know, deal as much damage. It's basically that with Legion, but I feel like they perfected it. It felt like a, I don't know, Treyarch. Like, Treyarch doesn't even have insane cool boss fights, but like an actual in-game boss fight that in a real story game, let's say, you lead up to it and you just combine all of your stuff and you're prepared. And that's what Outbreak is. You spawn in, you slowly build up your arsenal, you collect weapons, you pack a bunch of them, you prepare for a good amount of time to then go into a boss fight, which might not be a totally creative arena, but you basically have to defeat this certain boss. And I actually did this boss fight not too long ago, helping out a friend complete it and different things like that. I've helped you guys complete it. I've made plenty of videos on Legion, and that's why it's taking the number 1 spot. I love it. I personally, it's definitely one of my favorite boss fights to do, and you know, I could even go right now and do it. So that's why it's taking the number 1 spot. Really quickly, I just wanted to make this video really fast. I didn't want to prolong it as much as I did with talking about the wonder weapons. If you want to check that video out, link down in the description. This is like the second last ranking. I was gonna rank the Pack-a-Punch camos, but honestly, and who the hell cares? They're just Pack-a-Punch camos. The last ranking that we will be doing will be ranking all the maps, in my opinion, from, well, the round base. I'm not gonna be including the Outbreak ones because, man, we all know Zoo is the most overpowered. Let's not compete with Zoo, alright? Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this, again, fast video. Kind of fast. I kind of went on with Legion. But man, I really do enjoy the Legion boss fight. Number 1, baby. And Firebase Z, you know, revisiting that one. That was really fun to do. Comment down below what you think of my list, how much you disagree with me. Slap on a like button, or maybe dislike button, because you're like, I can't believe you put the Valentina boss fight here. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.